かりいただけただろうか。もはやこの世にはいない彼。ここに映ったものが彼を別の世界へと連れて行ったとでも言うのだろうか。
Demonic entities that rip the insides out of their still living victims, spread disease, and cause night terrors.
These are some of the most terrifying demons from around the world you'll be praying you never come face to face with.
Who do you have to blame when you're sick? Other than the person who got you sick, that is. Well, if you know anything about ancient Sumerian mythology, and like blaming demons for your problems, then a sag may be responsible for your 14th trip to the toilet in the span of a day. A sag is a pretty nasty demon, said to cause sickness. He's a hideous creature born from the underworld. So busted looking is he that his presence alone is said to make fish in the rivers boil, and one glimpse at the entity can cause people to fall sick and die on the spot. What's worse is that he doesn't come alone. He has an entire army of demonic offspring at his back. But how did he manage to procreate, being that people can't even look at him without dropping dead? Well, Asag didn't make love with people, he had his offspring with the mountains themselves, all the mountains in the world. So his sons and daughters are part hideous demon, part hideous rock creature.
If you've ever seen Game of Thrones, I have a feeling you're gonna like this next one. It's called a Draugr, and honestly you'd have a hard time convincing me that it wasn't the inspiration behind White Walkers. The demon comes from Nordic folklore. It's an ancient undead monster known to rise up from its grave and attack the living. Oh, and it's most active at night and in the winter. Sound familiar? When a person dies and is buried in the ground, it is believed that they will turn into a Draugr if they either practiced black magic, were executed, died an accidental death, or were buried outside a churchyard. I know, it's a broad spectrum and it doesn't make a lot of sense, but that is the criteria according to the Nordic folklore. Along with attacking the living, Draugrs have been known to climb onto the top of people's homes and stomp on their roofs to keep them from getting a good night's rest. If a person inside the home becomes restless and decides to leave their house, this demon will kill them, quite easily might I add, because they are incredibly strong. When there are no humans around, these Game of Thrones-esque zombie demons have also been known to eat livestock and tear apart fences and barns. Oh, and one more thing, the only way to kill them is to cut their heads off, burn them, and then scatter their ashes in the ground. It's a process, but probably worth it considering how aggressive these particular demons tend to be.
The Agitar is not an entity you want to run into. Much like a sag, just the sight of her alone can cause you to drop dead. Agitar comes from Finnish mythology, known not only as the devil of the woods, but the mother of the devil himself. Agitar is incredibly ugly and evil, spreading diseases and pestilence wherever she goes, and she often takes the form of a serpent. She's accompanied by them as well, and some stories even say she can control them. Snakes come up a lot in ancient myths about demonic entities. Unsurprisingly, people still fear snakes today, but especially back in the day, snakes were often seen as symbols of evil and poison in cultures across the world. People in ancient Finland believed Agitar could bring bad luck and misfortune just by being near. She was blamed for all sorts of problems, from poor harvests to outbreaks of sickness. If things started going wrong, it was said that Agitar was probably lurking nearby, making life difficult just for the sake of it, as demons do.
In Japanese folklore, there is something called yokai, which directly translated means strange apparitions. They are a class of supernatural entities and spirits whose behavior can range from benevolent and kind to mischievous all the way to malevolent and incredibly dangerous. One such malevolent and dangerous yokai is the rokurokubi, the apparition of a woman with sharp teeth, a taste for human flesh, and a neck that can stretch out of her shoulders and slither around the room like a 50-foot long snake. One nurse, we'll call her Jackie, shared an encounter with a rokurokubi, claiming that she had been attacked by one while working at a hospital in Japan. One night, one of Jackie's patients called her over to say that a woman wearing a red kimono had been standing beside her bed the whole night, but she couldn't see the woman's face because it had been covered with long black hair. The next night, a different patient told Jackie almost the same thing, except this time, the woman's neck was stretched up so high that her head was touching the ceiling. The nurse wasn't convinced, and the hospital wing she was working at was pretty much empty, so she decided to lay down for a quick cat nap. She awoke to a phone call from her mother in the middle of the night who said, "Honey, are you okay? I had a terrible dream that you fell asleep at the hospital and a creepy woman was watching you as you slept." Upon hearing this, Jackie dropped her phone, and when she went to pick it up, she saw 2 feet underneath her bed. And when she looked up, the outstretched neck of a woman smiling from ear to ear with dead eyes and razor-sharp teeth. I guess Jackie fainted because the next thing she knew, she woke up surrounded by hospital staff. She quit her job that day and hasn't returned to the hospital since. And honestly, I don't blame her. I'm covered in goosebumps just from reciting the story. I couldn't imagine living it.
Starting off this list in our number 10 spot, we have the Lesser Key of Solomon. This is a grimoire that is said to be cursed. It is said to contain spells that are used for summoning over 72 different demons, and just to add a little air of mystery, no one is exactly sure who wrote it. This is because the book is made up of a few different texts that have been compiled from somewhere around the 17th century. This book is said to be so cursed that even just having a copy of it will cause the owner to either experience constant bad luck or have the worst luck of all with passing away. People have shared their terrifying stories with the book, and they include the book's pages turning on their own, and another person shared that the book violently flew itself across the room at them. How terrifying would that be? While we aren't sure who wrote it, there are rumors or stories that suggest it might have been King Solomon. It is said that perhaps he wrote it for his son and then asked him to bury it with him in his grave. When being prepared for burial, a group of Babylonian philosophers found the book, and this is when they were visited by an angel who told them to hide the book from the unworthy. They then placed a spell on the book which was meant to keep it from getting into the wrong hands, and that is said to be how the book got its curse. In our number 9 spot today, we have the Untitled Grimoires. A witch's spellbook should never be messed with. I feel like that should be obvious, but I'll put that out there because apparently it isn't. The Untitled Grimoires are a set of handwritten spellbooks that were sold online for $14,000 in 2013. The books were written in the 1960s by a high priestess of Wicca who was the leader of a coven, and they detail things like spells, incantations, enchantments, and instructions on summoning spirits and demons. So, witch stuff. This is all fine and well unless you're sitting here thinking about how you don't believe. If you are a non-believer, it is best to stay as far away as possible from these books. The seller of the books warned that any non-believers who mess with the book will bring upon themselves a deadly curse, and on the first page of the book, the Wiccan herself wrote that proceeding with the book may have serious consequences. It reads, quote, "To those not of the craft, the reading of this book is forbidden. Proceed no further, or justice will exact a swift and terrible retribution, and you will surely suffer at the hand of the craft." That's a pretty sound warning, and one I probably wouldn't just roll the dice on. You know, just to be safe. In our number 8 spot today, we have The Sorrows of Young Werther. We've got a lot of books on this list that are said to contain magic and spells, and this one is a little different from the others on this list because it doesn't. This is a book that came out in 1774, and it is said to have had a large and negative impact on its readers since its release. Apparently, after this book came out, a huge wave of its readers ended up taking their own lives because of this strange and dark influence it had on those who read it. Young men would start trying to emulate the main character of the book by dressing like him, acting like him, that sort of thing, before following his horrifying actions in the book. This actually led to the book being banned in some countries, and for the most part, I'm pretty opposed to the banning of books, but I feel like this is one I can probably get behind. It is believed that even people who were in a completely fine headspace prior to reading the book would still be tempted to follow the dark path after reading it, which is exactly what has led people to believe that this book is cursed. In our number 7 spot today, we have the Picatrix. This is a grimoire that is said to contain a large amount of magic that is presumed to be from the 11th century. This text has long been considered pretty obscene because of the graphic content that exists within it. The pages contain some scholarly work with philosophy, astrology, and even some medieval science, which is actually pretty cool. But then there are things like recipes for concoctions that involve mixing human and animal blood, brains, urine, and other bodily fluids in with or other kinds of dangerous substances. The results are said to be magical, but I am far from convinced. This one definitely isn't the darkest or the spookiest on this list today, which is a nice refresher, and while some of what this book contains is definitely historically interesting, I think it's probably best to stay away from the magic and spells that lurk within. In our number 6 spot today, we have the Book of the Sacred Magic of Abramelin the Mage. This book was of course created by Abramelin, who was indeed a mage, and he created it as a gift for his son. At the time, his son was probably like, a book for my birthday? Thanks, I guess. Books are intimidating. Like, no one really liked holes the first time they read it. Actually, that's a lie. That's still one of the best books I've ever read. But I bet his son was like Harry Potter with the Half-Blood Prince potions textbook, you know? At first you don't really know what to make of it, but that stuff comes in handy later. Anyway, in the early 1900s, this book was translated into English, and that is when the rumors of the book being cursed began to spread. I mean, this book contained spells, but it also contained curses, so I feel like that rumor likely makes a lot of sense. It is said that this rumor has to do with Abram Ellen's belief that everyone has their own personal demon. I'm just hoping that mine is cool and nice. The good thing about this book, however, is that it holds instructions on how to get your demon under control through rituals and supernatural situations, but then the kicker with this is that it is always exceptionally risky to reach out to the spirit world, so maybe that's why everyone was feeling like this book is cursed. It's looking like unless you absolutely know what you're doing, the contents of this book just might be too powerful. Those who have had bad experiences with the book explained either bad luck or hauntings from the spirit world are what await for those who dare to read it.
Starting off this list in our number 10 spot, we have Ariana Grande. This is a terrifying paranormal encounter had by the super sweet Ariana Grande. Back in the Yours Truly era for the star, while in Kansas City, she and some friends took a visit to Stull Cemetery, which legend claims is one of the gates to hell on earth. This turned out to be a more haunting visit than the group had bargained for, however, as the singer recounted that suddenly they, quote, felt this sick, overwhelming feeling of negativity over the whole car, and we smelled sulfur, which is the sign of a demon, and there was a fly in the car randomly, which is another sign of a demon. I rolled down the window before we left and said, "We apologize, we didn't mean to disrupt your peace." Things only got more spooky for Ari though when she later tried to send her manager a picture of the cemetery. This photo she attempted to send came back with an error saying that the file couldn't be sent due to the fact that it was 666 megabytes. In our number 9 spot today we have Miley Cyrus. In an interview with UK, Miley Cyrus opened up about a haunted apartment that she and her family stayed in during her 2009 European tour. She said, quote, "It was seriously so terrifying. It used to be an old bakery and they turned it into an apartment building, and I was having really crazy dreams and really scary things, and one night my little sister, it sounds crazy to tell you, but she was standing in the shower and all of a sudden I hear her scream. I run in there and the water had somehow flipped to hot, but it wasn't like the water had just changed, the knob had turned, but she hadn't turned it and it was burning her. She was really red." She continued on with the chilling tale by saying, quote, "Before I felt this, I thought I had seen a little boy sitting on the sink watching me take a shower, so I felt really freaked out. I was sitting there the next night, and maybe I'm crazy, but I could have sworn I could see this little boy sitting there on the sink caking his feet. My mom was getting mad that we were looking into it because she thought it was going to scare Noah, so then my aunt, who we hadn't told about this, comes in and she starts freaking out. She's like, I have no idea what happened, but I left the apartment and I came back and all of the doors and windows were open. I locked the apartment." She finished off her creepy story by saying that there were a few more strange things that happened, and this all was enough for her to swear off ever staying in that place again. Miley believes the haunting ties back into the history of the building and says that the apparition she saw matches up with who once lived there. In our number 8 spot today we have Adele. The haunting story of Adele starts off when she decided that she had had enough of fans and paparazzi outside of her London home, so she decided to purchase and move to a new home in Sussex. This house, in its past life before housing the Grammy Award winner, is said to have been a convent. Despite the change, Adele continued to be visited by people she didn't want in her home, but this time the visitors were otherworldly. The singer claimed that she began to hear noises that she was unable to find the source of. Things in her home also began to fall for seemingly no apparent reason, and apparently these paranormal encounters made Adele so unsettled that she had to hire a bodyguard to stay in her house full time. Hopefully these plaguing hauntings have since stopped, but only Adele knows for sure. In our number 7 spot today we have Ozzy Osbourne. One of the most famous rock stars ever, Ozzy has long been connected to the occult. I mean, Ozzy Prince of Darkness didn't just come from nowhere. Aside from the rumors, however, Ozzy has been fairly open about his personal connection to the devil. In a 1984 issue of Hit Parader, Ozzy said, quote, "I really wish I knew why I've done some of the things I've done over the years. Sometimes I think that I'm possessed by some outside spirit. A few years ago, I was convinced of that. I thought I truly was possessed by the devil. I remember sitting through The Exorcist a dozen times, saying to myself, myself, yeah, I can relate to that. He even has expressed confusion over whether or not if he's a medium for some kind of outside source or if something much more sinister is at play. When speaking of actually selling his soul, Ozzy had some less than comforting things to say. He said, quote, "I already have. Well, you sell your soul to the devil when you do something yourself that you shouldn't, and I already have. I've lived my life to the fullest. If there's an afterlife, I've got a good spot in the furnace. You know?" In our number 6 spot today, we have Post Malone. Good old Posty has probably one of the most famous celebrity haunting stories, and it all started with a visit to ghost hunter Zach Bagans' museum. Within the museum was an old wine box that is said to hold a Dybbuk, which in Jewish mythology is a malicious demon. This box had come to the museum after the previous owner bought it on eBay and had some really horrible things happen to him and his family afterwards. These included reports of him having really horrific nightmares, and this extended to anyone else who touched the box, and sometimes even those who had just been around it. Even worse, his own mother had a serious medical emergency after he had given this box to her. This is all to say, the haunted item showed up in the Bagan Museum, and then 2018 rolled around and Post Malone decided to take a haunting tour of the occult collection. During this tour, Post Malone reached out and touched the box, and, well, he has been dealing with the consequences ever since. These are said to include the same horrific nightmares detailed by the box's previous owner.
We're starting off with a very harrowing image right off the bat. A red-eyed demon lady staring into a dude's car. Just take a look at this nightmare fuel. The creepiest thing about this video is that the woman just does not move an inch. She just stares wide-eyed into the car, completely frozen the whole time. I don't know. This one just kind of got under my skin a little bit. At one point I actually started averting my eyes from the screen just to avoid her glare. I also didn't know if there's gonna be some kind of a pop-up scare of some kind. Her face is hard to read. She's kind of doing this blank, dead-eyed, 1,000-yard stare, and because you can't make out any emotion on her face, just makes the whole thing even more unsettling. Of course, it could totally be a hoax, but I do find this one pretty effectively freaky. The red, unblinking eyes, the fact that she looks like she's covered in mud, it's just very strange. If anyone knows more about this video, please let me know down in the comments.
Next up, we have an image of an institutionalized woman taken in the 1900s, committed in France at a time when mental health was incredibly misunderstood and people suffering from epilepsy were often seen as being possessed by the devil. It's unclear what the woman in the photo suffered from or why she was imprisoned in the French institution in which the photo was taken, but what is clear is the fact that when the photo was taken, she had been forcibly restrained at the feet, by the wrists, and around the waist, a common practice for those suffering from delusions or fits at the time. For me personally, what stands out most about this photo, taken at a time in which demons were to blame for the majority of mental ailments, is that her body is positioned in the image of a cross. Whether or not this was directly intentional is unknown, but spooky nonetheless, not to mention super unethical.
Next on the list, we have this video of a goat walking on its hind legs. This video has been reposted so many times, so I'm not exactly sure who the original uploader is. I think it's Youngstar TV. Anyway, the short clip shows a goat walking on its hind legs into a barn, being followed close behind by a chicken. Some people find this clip kind of funny. The folks behind the camera are chuckling. I'd definitely be entertained if I were, visiting that farm, but if I were the farmer, I'd probably be keeping my eye on that goat from that point on. I'd probably laugh at first, but that laugh would probably disintegrate into an uncomfortable chuckle as soon as I realized that Baphomet was living right outside where I slept. And who the hell knows what it's thinking and planning? A chicken was following close behind him. Was this goat gathering farm animals together to stage a coup? Start leading a chicken army to take over the farm? Animals walking around like humans without being instructed to just gives me the creeps. When you see videos of dogs just walking on their hind legs, it's not right. It doesn't look right. It's no, stop that, please.
Next up, human dolls. It really doesn't get much more demonic than this. These lifelike dolls were created by a man named Anatoly Moskvin, a former Russian journalist who let's face it, was absolutely bat crazy. Oh, and when I say these dolls were lifelike, I mean it. Why? Well, because they were made of human flesh. Anyways, Moskvin was also a self-proclaimed grave expert, and he spent many years digging up the bodies of young women to use for his sick art projects. Each doll he made was carefully kept inside his home. He thought of them as both companions and lovers, and even admitted to engaging in physical contact with the creations in his writings. For many years, Moskvin and his deranged projects flew under the radar, but he was eventually caught in 2011 after police grew suspicious of the rising number of desecrated graves in the area. When officials searched the home of Moskvin, they found 26 life-size dolls, which were basically just mummified corpses laid out around the man's home like they were living there. I guess you could argue that what he did isn't technically demonic, but it's for sure demented.
This next video is taken in Mexico at a church. The priest was in the middle of leading a sermon when suddenly you hear this loud, distressed scream coming from somewhere. Take a listen.
El Señor esté con ustedes y con tu espíritu.
Now, it's hard to make out what the voice is saying, especially because I don't speak Spanish. Some people have said it sounds like a woman screaming, "Please help." Now, there's not a ton of info behind this clip, but apparently the priest immediately stopped the sermon after that. Even in the short clip, you see him step down from the podium as his voice kind of like trails off. He seems pretty unsettled. And I mean, fair enough. Ghostly screams echoing through a church is probably gonna throw off your rhythm just a little bit.
Starting us off at number 10 is an alien demon. This clip first surfaced back in 2019 after a woman named Vivian Gomez was checking her security camera footage one morning. In this clip I'm about to show you, there is a creepy, pale, gaunt looking creature who walks, or whatever you want to call it, across her driveway, and I mean, I don't blame her for being freaked out. So as you can see, there is a very weird little humanoid looking creature that would for sure make me question my sanity if it popped up on my security footage. Now, of course, when it was posted, there were quite a few people that pointed out how much this creepy creature resembles Dobby, the elf from Harry Potter, and I mean, honestly, I kind of do see that. Also, that funky little chicken dance thing that it's doing is definitely not the most intimidating thing a demon could do. But the funny Dobby point aside, it's still a super freaky video that definitely makes me feel all kinds of weirded out. I mean, look at that thing. It doesn't look human to me, that's for sure. Plus, all we are seeing is the back. Who knows what its face looks like, let alone what it could be capable of. Let's just hope that whatever it is, it's not looking to hurt us. Next up at number 9, a river monster. Now, this video starts off a little differently from the rest on this list, but I still thought it was weird enough to add to the list for you guys. As you can see, there are two people at the top of a hill with a stretcher, and a group of people in what appear to be hazmat suits a little bit down a ledge from them trying to pick something up. Now, a group of people wearing hazmat suits in the middle of the day by the river is definitely a little unusual to begin with, but what's even stranger than that is what they appear to be grabbing. If you take a look at the clip, it looks like whatever they're grabbing is some kind of strange creature, potentially even a demonic one. Some people online said they thought it looked like a mermaid, which, I mean, is definitely one theory. I don't know, you guys, let me know in the comments what you think this creature could be. Coming in at number 8, a skeleton demon. Demons come in all shapes and sizes, but until today I had never really thought about one that looked like a skeleton. I mean, I don't know, maybe that's just me. And hey, maybe it's not a demon, but then you can tell me what this creature might be. As you can see in the clip here, it looks like this came from some security footage, and right there, as you can see, is a creepy demonic alien skeleton thingy that will probably be etched into my brain for many days to come. But then something spooks it and it disappears behind a bush, and that's it. That's all we see of this terrifying creature. Now, some people online think this one could be a hoax, but I don't know. What do you guys think? Could that be a freaky skeleton demon coming to haunt you in your sleep? I sure as hell hope not. Next up at number 7, a demon possession. Now, don't get me wrong, I love ooky spooky content as much as the next person.
but that doesn't mean I'm looking to get mixed up with demons or hoping to catch one on a ghost hunt. These guys, however, posted a video of their ghost hunt a little over a year ago to YouTube entitled "The Scariest Video You Will Ever Watch." Now, that's a pretty bold statement considering what is on the internet these days, but to be fair, there is a pretty freaky moment where it looks like one of the guys gets possessed. So as we can see, the lights are flickering, you know, classic demon stuff, and so they head into the room to investigate. But the creepy part comes when the guy holding the camera turns back and sees his friend with completely jet black eyes. I mean, if that were me in a haunted house with the lights flickering like that, I would definitely be running as far away as I could. But hey, to each their own. However, maybe the strangest part is that literally seconds later, it's gone and he's back to normal. I mean, I don't know. What do you guys think? Was he being possessed by an evil demon? Coming in at number 6, a creepy crawly. This next one was posted to the YouTube channel Kisa Weba, and it's definitely what my nightmares are made of. All demons are creepy, but there is definitely something about one that's crawling on the ground that adds an extra layer of shivers down my spine. As you can see in the clip, this demon is crawling across the pavement, full horror movie style on their hands, and behind them it looks like there is this trail of like demon ghostness falling behind them, or maybe that's just the shape of the demon. I'm not totally sure. Either way, it is an incredibly demon-looking thing to me, but whatever it is, I would 100% not want to run into this on my nighttime walk. That is for sure.
Number 10, Legion. Jesus encounters a possessed man and calls on the demon to emerge, demanding to know its name, which is an important element of traditional exorcism practice. He finds the man is possessed by a multitude of demons who give the collective name of Legion. So, yeah, this demon is made of countless evil spirits able to incarnate into a physical body or separate into their respective forms at will. While the types of demons that make up Legion is unknown, they are said to be the same kind of demon that would inhabit a host and would have a single hive mind. Speaking of which, the demons of Legion do act like a hive mind, always speaking in unison and always knowing what the other demon is thinking and preparing to do. Legion appears as a floating sphere that is protected by an outer shell composed of massive innumerable humanoid bodies. This enormous lump of flesh conceals an inner core whose identity can vary. Legion, when possessing a human body, begins to torture the psychological person, making them have depressive and negative thoughts to erase any desire of life from its hosts. Their attitude of possessing human bodies is seen as a horrible act to most angels, as it deprives humans of their only weapon, free will. Number 9, Furfur. Furfur, also known as Furcifer, is a demon who is said to be the Count of Hell, leading 26 legions. He speaks in a hoarse voice, has a fiery tail, and usually appears as a stag. He is said to be able to make men and women fall in love, and also has command over great storms. He gives true answers to all things past, present, and future, but he must first be commanded to enter a magic triangle, for if not, he will lie and deceive the conjurer. But if he enters the triangle, he will answer truly and gladly speak about divinity, the creation of the world, himself, and other fallen angels. He can also destroy all the conjurer's enemies by burning them up. And if the magician requests it, he will not suffer temptations from any spirit or in any form. Furfur can also supposedly be called upon when a mortal wishes to take vengeance on other demons. This is likely included in his capability to destroy the conjurer's enemies. And I just gotta say, how scary can a demon be if its name is literally Furfur? It sounds like a name someone would give their cat. Number 8, Beelzebub. Beelzebub is a former Seraphian turned into high-ranking demon who is considered one of the 7 princes of hell and oversees the Order of the Fly. In Catholic demonology, he is sometimes considered to be one of the first 3 angels to fall from heaven, along with Lucifer and Leviathan. He is also often confused with Satan, and the 2 names can be interchanged. However, strictly speaking, they are 2 separate entities. Beelzebub is the chief lieutenant of Lucifer and is one of the most loyal. He is commonly described as placed high in the hierarchy of hell and is seen as being associated with envy. He is also the prince of false gods, and flies play a large focus in imagery detailing him. The malignant spirit can even take the form of flies, according to some. I mean, ever heard of Lord of the Flies? Yup, that's him. Number 7. Mammon. Mammon in the New Testament of the Bible is commonly thought to mean money, material wealth, or an entity that promises wealth and is associated with the greedy pursuit of gain. After the rebellion in heaven, Mammon was banished to hell, where he is the one who finds underground precious metals that his demonic companions used to build their capital city, Pandemonium, by Lucifer's order. Mammon counsels the devils to be happy with what they've got and to create a home for themselves in hell. He is one of the 7 princes of hell, each representing the 7 deadly sins. Mammon represents greed and is known as the treasurer of hell, and was said to have had dealings with the Greek deity Zeus. It is thought that when you make a deal with the devil for wealth and fame, you are making it with Mammon. Number 6. Belphegor. Belphegor is a demon lord that presides over the sin of sloth and is one of the 7 princes that rules hell. He also assists people to make discoveries. For example, he seduces people by suggesting to them ingenious inventions that will make them rich and they wouldn't have to work hard for it. As one of the fallen angels, Belphegor was originally a member of the Order of the Principalities, and after his fall, he became a demonic counterpart to one of the 10 Sephiroth that oversee the Tree of Life. He is the biblical enemy of the 6 Sephiroth, the patron angel of beauty. It's said that if Belphegor were to become too influential in the world, then the beauty of it all would become tainted, causing ruination. Number 5. Leviathan. Leviathan became a demon of darkness and chaos and a leader of hell mentioned in the book of Enoch. Leviathan is one of Lucifer's arms and one of the many faces of the devil in Christianity. He is also the representation of the sin envy. Leviathan is a tamer of beasts, a beast collector, and an excellent strategist. He has the power to summon hellish whales that are natural inhabitants of hell and use them in battle. Leviathan appears as a huge sea beast, a very powerful species of a sea serpent dragon. This form is so colossal that it's said to be capable of frightening the bravest of men and is capable of swallowing fishing boats and even ships. Its scales are several small teeth throughout its body, similar to a shark's body. Now, in his human form, Leviathan appears as a handsome young man in his late teens. Although the appearance is similar to a human, he has fish gills on his neck and his ears are pointed. He also has a small shark-like teeth that are hidden under a thin layer of skin in his mouth. Like his name suggests, he is a very jealous person, with Lucifer often being the target though. It should be noted that Leviathan's jealousy isn't limited to only him, so you should watch out. Number 4. Lucifer. Lucifer was one of the most beautiful and indescribable beings created by God, with his wisdom and beauty being described as perfect. However, despite being considered a perfect, beautiful, and glorious being by countless angels, Lucifer was extremely proud and rebelled against his father after refusing to bow down to Adam and Eve. Therefore, Lucifer is known as the first sinner, the devil, and the adversary. Now, Lucifer didn't create any angels, only God had that power, but Lucifer did trick some of them into rebelling against God and becoming his followers, claiming that he was more powerful than God and would take God's place as the ruler of the universe. They believed him, and since then, Lucifer has used them to do his will. He's known for the deadly sin of pride, and he used his pride to persuade them. I will ascend to heaven, I will raise my throne above the stars of God, I will make myself like the Most High. Isaiah 14. Lucifer also sends the worst people up to earth to wreak havoc and terrorize everyone, as well as tries to tempt non-sinners to the dark side, so be safe. Number 3. Abaddon. Abaddon is considered the ruler of all demons in the 7th layer of hell, violence, and also the commander of the locusts of Abaddon. Now, what are the locusts? Well, they're scorpion-tailed warhorses that have a man's face with lion's teeth. They are commanded to torment anyone for 5 months who does not have the seal of God on their forehead by using their scorpion-like tails. So, yeah. He rules them. He has eyes as black as night and a huge mouth with many sharp teeth like those of a great white shark. In addition, he wears black armor and his wings have even turned dark. Abaddon is sometimes referred or foreshadowed as death, as they both are neutral entities of 2 opposing forces. He is also considered both an angel and demon, with neutral and at times lawful agents of both heaven and hell. It is unknown where his allegiance lies. He's often bringing judgment upon people in the name of God, implying that that he works for the Almighty. That being said, Abaddon has also caused events that God would never have wanted to happen, let alone the fact that Abaddon helped Lucifer during the war in heaven. Seems like he liked to play both sides. It's also said during Judgment Day he will gather the souls of the damned and carry them down to the place of God's final judgment. Number 2. Asmodeus. Asmodeus is a demon who personifies and represents lust, the sexual sin related to adultery. He is the demon who exists as the arch-rival of the angel of chastity, Gabriel. Asmodeus is also referred to as one of the 7 princes of hell and represents one of the 7 deadly sins, being lust. Asmodeus is a demon of lust and is therefore responsible for twisting people's sexual desires. It is said that people who fall to Asmodeus' ways will be sentenced to an eternity in the 2nd level of hell. He is also a demon of lechery, jealousy, anger, and revenge. In hell, Asmodeus looks human, however he has stark black eyes and 2 rows of shark teeth sticking out of his mouth. In this form, Asmodeus has no hair on his head, but has a muscular appearance from the waist up and 2 bat wings protruding from his back. From the waist down, he has what looks like kangaroo legs and a long dragon's tail. His horrible appearance is capable of causing fear and repudiation in humans who fall into hell, and that's the demon's intention. And coming up at number 1 is Satan. Satan is a prominent demon in the hierarchy of hell. He is known for bringing evil and temptation, and is known as the deceiver who leads humanity astray. Satan is even able to take control of the life of a person in the stead of God, though only to an extent to what God allows. Satan would appear to those who are sinful, playing into their hearts and towing them into despair. He may either be depicted as a rebel to the will of God, or as one who tempts mankind to commit sin to show God that mankind can easily be led astray from him. He is described as the ruler of the demons and the god of this age. In Revelation, Satan appears as a great red dragon who is ultimately banished from heaven by Michael the Archangel. Satan is mostly known as the devil, and although the book of Genesis does not mention him, he is often identified with the serpent in the Garden of Eden. Satan is also said to be associated with one of the 7 deadly sins, being wrath, and is one of the 7 princes of hell.
Next up at number 5, a pale creature. This next clip is creepy to say the least. It was first posted to Twitter by the username ParanormalityM, and it immediately had just about the entire internet freaked out. In this clip I'm gonna show you here, there is an almost ghoulishly white creature that is probably one of the most indescribable things I've ever laid eyes on. I mean, you take a look for yourself and see, right? Look at that thing. Do you get what I mean? Like, actually, what is that creature? Some think it could have been some kind of paranormal sighting, while others joked it kind of looked like Gollum, which, truth be told, I can kind of get behind. However, the resemblance to Gollum or not doesn't make this ghoulish creature any less freaky, or any less possible of being a demon capable of possessing you and ruining your entire life. Coming in at number 4, Voldemort Demon. This next video was posted by an account called Supernatural back in 2020, and before I get into it, let me just start off by saying that the first thought I had about this demon was that it looked like Voldemort. That or Emperor Palpatine maybe, both of whom I would prefer to whatever the hell is in this clip. So as you can see, as the camera starts coming into focus, a terrifying dark creature is standing at the very back of the hallway staring right at the camera. Now, something about the fact that it doesn't move almost makes it scarier, like I am just waiting for something super bad to happen. However, whoever was filming this apparently likes to live on the edge, as it looks like they actually start getting closer to this evil cloaked demon. But then, completely out of nowhere, this Voldemort demon straight up falls away and disappears. I mean, look at that. Like, what is happening there? If there is one thing that is scarier than seeing a demon, it's seeing that demon disappear and having no sweet clue where the hell it went. Coming in at number 3, Monster Under the Bed. Thanks to horror movies, there are many people out there who are nervous to sleep with their toes outside of the covers on the off chance that a demon will come and grab them in the night. And listen, I'm not saying it makes complete sense, but I'm also saying that I might be one of those people. Now, while I'm not 100% sure, it seems like this might be footage of someone that's being possessed by a demon. That or it's a humanoid kind of creature, but either way, it's spooky and not anything I would ever want to come into contact with. In the clip here, you'll notice it starts on the bed, then is abruptly seen standing with its back to the camera before the clip jumps, and all of a sudden, this demon is shaking the bed by the bars like a maniac. This clip continues on to show the ghoulish white figure standing in the corners or contorted around the bed until maybe the creepiest part, when this demon looks as if it starts eating its own flesh. Listen, tell me what you see here. To me, this looks like a freaky demon possession that would 100% ruin my sleep. And if the demons that may or may not live under my bed are anything like this, then, well, let's just hope they leave me alone. Coming in at number 2, the floating girl. This next video was posted online back in 2017. However, according to the timestamp on the video itself, it looks like it was taken back in 1997. This section of the clip I'm gonna show you starts off with a woman who I'm going to guess is the priest or something, cracking what looks like a black egg into a bowl. I mean, already I'm confused, but that is quickly far less interesting as the possessed girl abruptly sits up and all you see are her piercing hollow black eyes. She drinks the egg concoction and then as quickly as she sat up, she throws her body back down into the bed. As you can see, things keep getting crazier. Her seemingly hollowed out eyes shoot back open and the next thing you know, she's floating off the bed. From there, her body starts slowly lowering down again until she grabs the camera and it goes blank. I mean, you guys are looking at the same thing as me here, and I have to admit that is some pretty freaky footage. And last up in our number 1 spot today, possessed by the devil. Not to be dramatic or anything, but this last clip I'm about to show you is utterly horrifying. I mean, honestly, I think that this clip is going to be seared into my mind for eternity, which is super fun. Like, just watch the clip here. Pardon me, the contorted face and body, the blood all over his mouth, and what was that evil laugh noise he was making? Also, can we talk about the ribs that may as well have been cracked open at the very end there? If there was ever a video to prove the existence of a demon possession, I would definitely put this video at the top of my list. That's all I'm saying, because really, I can't think of many other explanations for what I just saw.
Next up, we have a photograph taken during the exorcism of Annalise Mitchell. In the late 1960s, the young woman began to exhibit increasingly alarming behaviors, causing both her and her parents to believe that she had been possessed by the devil. After a while of watching Annalise routinely convulse, hallucinate, eat spiders, and consume her own urine, they decided it was time to call in the big guns. Exorcists. But unfortunately for Annalise and her family, the first exorcism didn't take, or the second, or the third. In total, Annalise Mitchell underwent 67 exorcisms throughout her life, none of which seemed to do the young woman any good. She died of malnutrition in 1976, or at least that's what they say she died of. She was 23 years old and just 68 pounds. The last image taken of the woman alive is a true testament to the torment she endured throughout her life. And not only that, but the events of the poor woman's life actually are what inspired the 2005 horror film, The Exorcism of Emily Rose.
This is not the face you want to see in an alleyway in the middle of the night. It looks like Reagan from The Exorcist. I'd be running away crying too if I saw that. Though this guy did stick around for a while. He just kind of stared with the camera at this demonic thing as it was just kind of, yeah. Freaky. I don't know where this video is from. I don't know the backstory. It sounds like the guy is speaking Arabic. Some commenters have said that this demon thing could be a jinn. Whatever it is, it's creepy as hell. Of course, it could be a hoax, but whatever. Like a mysterious video with some nightmarish imagery always works for me.
Next up, nuclear shadows. After the 1945 bombing of Hiroshima on August 6th by the United States, not much was left in the areas in which the blast went off. Somewhere around 80,000 people lost their lives due to the explosion, which went off about 1,900 feet above the city's center. When the nuclear weapon, often referred to as Little Boy, detonated, it caused the surrounding area to reach temperatures of up to 10,000 degrees Fahrenheit, which completely obliterated anything within 1,600 feet of the blast zone. Not only that, but the extreme heat caused bleaching to occur on the city's exposed surfaces like buildings, roads, sidewalks, staircases, you name it. However, in places where people stood during the blast, bleaching did not occur. Bodies would protect the surface from the heat flash as they themselves were incinerated in mere moments. To look at these images now is pretty disturbing.
Next up, we have a sleep paralysis demon. This clip was shared to TikTok by Nightmare Fuel with the description reading, "If you suffer from sleep paralysis, please do not watch." Well, too late for me, I watched it. In the video, we see a man sleeping in bed. A thermal imaging camera has been set up. The man lays motionless in bed without any context. We think he was just sound asleep, but that's not exactly the case. Turns out he was experiencing a round of sleep paralysis, but the chilling part comes in when we see something being picked up on the thermal imaging camera that we can't see on the normal camera. It looks like some sort of entity climbing onto the bed and crouching on the man's chest, which is the exact feeling people would describe having when experiencing sleep paralysis. Sometimes people will say they even see some sort of entity as well. Sleep paralysis, ain't it a barrel of laughs? I've had sleep paralysis a number of times, more so when I was younger, but every once in a while it still shows up for an impromptu visit at 3 a.m. Next time it happens, I'll be thinking of this video. So, thanks for that.
And finally, we have the rather haunting or demonic, perhaps, message left behind by William Hirons on December 10th of 1945, moments before he brutally took the life of Frances Brown. The message, written on the wall in Brown's home and in her own red lipstick, read, "For heaven's sake, catch me before I kill again. I cannot control myself," thus giving Hirons the name the Lipstick Killer. After writing the message, Hirons impaled Brown with a large blade and then wrapped her head in towels before fleeing the scene. Prior to killing Brown, Hirons had actually taken the life of another woman named Josephine Ross in a similar fashion. She had been impaled before having her skirt wrapped around her head. But in the case of Ross, her wounds had been taped shut. The last woman Hirons killed was Suzanne Degnan. She was taken from her bedroom, and 12 hours later her head was found floating in a sewer near her family home. Hirons was finally arrested after an attempted B&E, and while in interrogation he admitted to being the Lipstick Killer and was sentenced to life in prison. However, many discrepancies make his incarceration quite controversial, but I will save that for another video.
In our number 5 spot today, we have Bob Dylan. Not necessarily who I really expected to put on this list, but there was an interesting interview back in 2014 that made many people speculate that the musician might have actually sold his soul. In the interview, he was explaining that he owes his years of fame and success to a deal he made. The interviewer asked, "Why are you still out here?" To which Dylan replied, "It goes back to that destiny thing. I made a bargain with it. You know, long time ago, and I'm holding up my end." The interviewer, of course, had to follow up on that cryptic message, so he said, "What was your bargain?" And he replied, "To get where I am now." The interviewer asked, "Should I ask who you made the bargain with?" And he replied, "With the chief commander." The interviewer clarified, "On this earth?" To which he answered, "In this earth and in a world we can't see." I can totally see why some people decided to draw their own conclusions from this. I mean, it sounds like he's basically speaking in riddles, so while he doesn't outright say that he sold his soul, some believe that this is what he was trying to say in that interview. In our number 4 spot today, we have Mike Colter. You might know Mike Colter as he plays Luke Cage in the MCU, but what you might not know about the actor is a very ghostly encounter that he had. Back in 2019, Mike was on Kelly Clarkson's show, and while on the show, he had an eerie tale for the audience when he said, quote, "I'm from the South, and there's a lot of things that happened in the South that don't happen anywhere else." Of course, Kelly inquired further, and that is when the star revealed a reoccurring moment that he claims happened, quote, night after night. His mother basically explained it to him as a spirit being attracted to his energy. He said, quote, when I was a kid, I used to have this thing that was sitting on my chest when I would sleep, and it was keeping me from getting up, and I couldn't open my eyes, and I would struggle. I don't know about you guys, but that sounds absolutely horrifying. I know a couple demons that could match up with that. Maybe it's a sleep paralysis demon, who knows? In our number 3 spot today, we have Vanessa Hudgens. Just last year, in April of 2022, Vanessa appeared on the Kelly Clarkson Show. I guess everyone's just on the Kelly Clarkson Show talking about their paranormal experience. And during this appearance, she spoke about having, quote, a lot of paranormal encounters over the years. She said, quote, I kind of shut it down for a while because the unknown is scary, but I recently was like, no, this is a gift and something that I have the ability to do, so I'm going to lean into it. Expanding on how she is leaning into these abilities, she explained that she had actually recently completed her first real paranormal investigation. Now we have Ed, Lorraine, and Vanessa. During this investigation, she said she met a very playful ghost at the site of a cemetery. I mean, I guess it's not like a malicious spirit. She said that she was able to speak to this ghost using a spirit box, and that after introducing herself, the ghost replied and repeated the names back to her. Maybe this year we'll see Vanessa diving even further into the paranormal, the occult, and all of these otherworldly beings. In our number 2 spot today, we have Courtney Cox. Back in March 2022, former Friends star Courtney Cox shared a harrowing experience she had that led her to go as far as to sell her house. She said, quote, I didn't believe at first, but I lived in this house in Laurel Canyon, which is in LA, obviously, and it was Gypsy Rose Lee's house and Carole King's. She went on to say, quote, so Carole King came over to my house and she said that there had been a divorce that was really ugly and that there was a ghost in the house. And I was like, yeah, whatever. But other people would stay there with me, like friends of mine, and they said they felt an encounter with a woman who was sitting on the edge of the bed. Despite these tales from her friends and even doing an actual seance with Carole, Courtney still wasn't really a believer of the supernatural. This all did eventually change, however, and it happened when a UPS worker came to her house. Quote, I was at the house one day, not being a believer. The doorbell rang, it was a UPS guy or something, and I opened the door and he said, do you know this house is haunted? And I go, yeah, why? Why do you think that? And he goes, because there's someone standing behind you. And I was like, let's sell. She said she quickly put the house up for sale. She said she quickly put the house up for sale after that, and that she, quote, couldn't sleep there alone ever again. And finally, in our number 1 spot today, we have Cynthia Rowley. So there was a show called Celebrity Ghost Stories, and in an episode, Cynthia Rowley showed up to share her haunting tale. The designer recalled a spooky tale that took place at her estate, which is located in Greenwich, Connecticut. She explained that there was a, quote, ghost-like feeling in the house, which certainly is an eerie feeling, but soon a feeling turned into something a little bit more tangible. Eventually, Cynthia began seeing a sort of apparition in the corner of a room in the home. This apparition appeared as a woman who was wearing a sort of scarf over her face. This is all chilling enough, but things only got worse when Cynthia had to escape a fire in her home. She did, thankfully, and was fine, but then the local fire chief told her something she hadn't previously known. The woman who once owned the home she now lived in was called the, quote, Diamond Match heiress who was badly burned in a blaze. Seems like Cynthia may have been haunted by the previous owner of the house, and not just in like a tacky decor kind of way, I mean like for real haunted.
In our number 5 spot today, we have the Book of Black Magic and Pacts. This book, written by A.E. Waite, is an exhaustive guide to all things occult. It looks at lore, magic, occultist history, and ceremonies. There's certainly no issue with this itself, but when in the wrong hands, things can certainly get a little dicey, especially considering this book has been referred to as one of the greatest overviews of occultism, and it includes a large number of magical spells from a variety of sources. This book is said to also contain rituals of transcendental magic and rituals of black magic. The author of this book, A.E. Waite, White is said to have been a British scholarly mystic as well as a poet, and it is said that he was quite a prolific writer on both occult and esoteric matters. In our number 4 spot today, we have the Codex Gigas. This book is said to give the reader the ability to harness evil and negative energy, and is also often referred to as the Devil's Bible. This book was first discovered in 1648 and is massive at 36 inches tall, 20 inches wide, and 8.7 inches thick, and here's what's weird. It weighs 165 pounds. It is said that this book was actually written by a monk, but this monk had broken his spiritual vows. He was of course punished, but in a pretty extreme way, which was to be sealed behind a wall and then left there to die. Right before his passing, he realized he wouldn't be able to finish the book, which is when he then summoned Lucifer and asked him to complete it for him. If I knew you could do that, I would have summoned Lucifer to finish all my book reports in school. I guess I probably wouldn't have been cool with the whole selling your soul thing though. It is said that this book is filled with dark rituals, instructions on how to perform exorcisms, as well as a bunch of creepy drawings of the devil and other demons. Right now it is said that this book has 310 pages, but that it once used to have 320. The 10 pages that were ripped out were said to contain instructions on how someone could summon the devil, so hopefully whoever had those 10 pages destroyed them right away. In our number 3 spot today, we have the Grand Grimoire. This book is often referred to as the book with incredible power and has been called one of the darkest books in the world. While the author of this book is still unknown, the contents of it are things like black magic and dark, spooky secrets. It is believed that the book was written sometime around 1521, and it is split into 2 books. Book 1 details instructions on how to summon a demon and how to get the demon to do your bidding. The second book is split into 2 parts, and it details how to make a pact with a demon and how to command the spirit, but with less tools, which means it is significantly riskier than the instructions in the first book. Apparently in the book it even details how someone can call upon Lucifer or the devil, so I guess who needs those 10 missing pages in the Codex Gigas? Just go out and get the Grand Grimoire and you're right back in the devil summoning game, no worries. The book describes a few different demons, and it also gives spells that one can do for things like winning the lottery, love spells, becoming invisible, you know, magic stuff. While those spells certainly sound nice, magic like that always comes at a cost. People fear the Grand Grimoire because they worry that if anyone reads it fully, then the devil will enslave their soul. No thank you. In our number 2 spot today, we have the Book of Soiga. Anything that is referred to as the Book of Death is definitely one I'll most likely spend some time trying to stay away from. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but that is the least inviting thing I've ever heard in my life. If you don't agree with me on that sentiment, however, the tough thing with this one is that nobody knows exactly what language it is written in. The beginning part of the book definitely contains some spells and incantations. The ending of the book really is where the most mystery lies, and trying to decipher it is no easy task. It is said that a scholar named John Dee once attempted to decode the secret book, and it was so difficult that he needed to call on the angel Uriel for help. Even the angel didn't have the answers and instructed John to call on the archangel Michael, who would be the only one who was able to interpret the text. Here's where this mystery book gets more mysterious though. After John Dee passed away in 1608, the book basically just vanished and no one knew where it went, but then, like magic, it just reappears in the 19th century. Despite this extremely interesting story and how it kind of draws you in like you wish you could crack the code that this book holds, it's best to stay away from because it is said whoever is able to decipher the ending of this book will inevitably die 2.5 years later, so is it really worth it? You don't even get a cool phone call to give you a heads up either. No girl coming out of the well, you just get me telling you on the internet. This is the worst sequel to The Ring ever. In our number 1 spot today, we have the Munich Manual. Also referred to as the Necromancer's Manual, this grimoire comes to us from the 15th century and is a text that is largely focused on demonology and necromancy. A lot of grimoires have both good and dark magic, but this is one that focuses solely on the dark black magic. There are 3 different sections to this one. The first section deals with illusionist magic and spells that trick people into seeing things that aren't there. The next is psychological magic, which is meant to use emotion, politics, and things like that in order to gain power over another individual. And if these 2 weren't scary enough, the third section is divinatory spells, which are meant to allow the reader to see into the past, present, or future. One of the most well-known parts of this book is the part that includes instructions on how to make the Mirror of Lilith, which is for the purpose of divination we just talked about.
Now we can't talk about demons without mentioning at least another yokai. There are tons of these creatures and entities that fall under the yokai umbrella in Japanese folklore. They include demons, ghosts, monsters, and there's loads of types of each. The Enko are river-dwelling yokai, resembling monkeys. Don't let their appearance deceive you into thinking the worst they'll do is play a little trick on you though. These are some violent, sadistic animals right here, and tales about them get very graphic. Enko are said to live in rivers and along the seashore. They're kinda like kappa, who are more like turtle creatures, but these ones are way worse. They're excellent swimmers, and if you happen to come across one while taking a dip, it's probably gonna be game over for you in the worst way. See, these creatures love eating human liver, fresh human liver. Their method of obtaining it, shoving their arm right up their victim's rear end and pulling it out. The worst rectal exam you'll ever receive.
Have you ever woken up in the middle of the night only to discover that you can't move your arms or legs? Not only that, but you can't seem to muster up the ability to make a sound, and so when you see a dark scraggly demon lurking at the foot of your bed or sitting directly on top of you, all you can do is sit there and stare at it, feeling nothing but pure terror. Well, if you have, it sounds like you've been visited by a Phi Am. The Phi Am has its roots in Thai folklore, where it is believed to be the lesser known cause of the well-known phenomenon of sleep paralysis. Phi Ams have been known to sit on their victims' chests in the middle of the night, restricting their movement and instilling fear into their souls, and in extreme cases, crushing their lungs entirely and taking their lives. It is said that the creature tends to haunt men more than women, and so in some places where the demons are more common, men have actually been known to don traditional women's bedtime clothing to avoid being haunted by the demon. Small price to pay for not having your lungs crushed.
The Alp is a creepy creature from German folklore, and it's the stuff of nightmares, literally. Known for causing horrible nightmares, the Alp is said to sit on its victims' chests in the middle of the night, causing the sleeper to wake up in a panic, unable to breathe or move as they're crushed under the weight of the creature. Yes, this is another sleep paralysis demon. The Alp is usually described as a small elf-like being, but it can shape-shift into other forms, usually animals like cats, dogs, or snakes. It's also said to sometimes ride a horse. The Alp also wears a special cap that gives it the power to become invisible, sneak into people's homes unseen. This is just another one of the many demonic entities people used to try and explain sleep paralysis back in the day. And when people would wake up feeling terrified, unable to move, with a heavy pressure on their chest, having a hallucination of something sitting on top of them or lurking at the foot of their beds, it's no wonder people thought there were malevolent demons roaming around in the night. I can only imagine how horrifying it would have been to grow up around this time. I mean, I've had sleep paralysis, and if my mother told me that it was thanks to a demon, I would just never go to bed again.
The Mongolian deathworm demon is honestly just gross. It's gross. It's gross to look at, it's gross to think about, and yet here I am talking about it to you because I respect you enough to know that you are brave enough to handle the gross demon worm. And I'm proud of you for that. Now, while many zoologists believe that the idea of the Mongolian demon worm comes from an exaggeration of real snake and worm sightings, Mongolian locals to this day claim otherwise, and many of them say that they have actually seen this giant creature for themselves and just narrowly escaped its vicious attack. You see, Mongolian deathworms are said to have a large circular row of incredibly sharp teeth and venom that acts like acid. My advice, if you're in Mongolia, avoid the desert, and maybe you will make it out alive.
This demon is about as evil and demonic as a demon can be. Lamashtu, another demon from Sumerian and Mesopotamian mythology. An entity with the head of a lion and long, sharp talons and claws like a bird. Lamashtu really doesn't have any redeeming qualities. Some of her hobbies include, but are not limited to, messing with women while they're pregnant, kidnapping newborns, sucking out men's BLOOD, infesting rivers and lakes, spreading disease and sickness in general, ruining crops, and giving people nightmares. Lamashtu was so terrifyingly evil that people would often try to ward her off with the help of another demon, Pazuzu, Lamashtu's arch nemesis. The Batman to her Joker, the He-Man to her Skeletor, the list goes on, you get my point.
Imagine, you're walking home one night, it's dark, and you're all alone. All of a sudden you look up and realize you're standing face to face with the most beautiful woman you've ever seen. She has piercing eyes, shiny black hair, and then she starts to smile, exposing 2 rows of red-stained, razor-sharp teeth. You fall backwards to see that something is missing: her body. This woman isn't a woman at all, just a floating head with half a neck and a trail of guts and organs hanging out. You have stumbled across a karasu hungry for human flesh. There are many different stories regarding the origin of this creature who hunts at night and then returns to her headless body in the morning to go about her day indistinguishable from any other woman except for her tired expression. The most popular is that the karasu was a princess living in Cambodia in the 15th century who was engaged to a prince but in love with someone else, a commoner. Eventually she was caught in her affair and sentenced to death by fire. She consulted a witch who cast a spell of protection for the young princess, but unfortunately the spell didn't kick in until the fires had almost reached the young woman's head. Other stories claim that the demon is a woman who broke a deal with another demon, or a woman who made a grave mistake while practicing black magic. However she came to be, people in Thai culture say that those who consult with demons or practice similar magic are doomed to meet the same fate as the princess when they die.
Have you been unfortunate enough to meet one of these demons in person?
I have not. Have you?
Share your thoughts and experiences down below.
Cheers, friends.
Want to see more videos like this one? Check out this video next. We found the most evil videos ever produced on the internet, and we compiled them into one big video for you guys. Check out the video now and find out now. What are you waiting for? Click the video now.